warthogs they'll be out and the light starts fading and they suddenly realize, oh shit, I'm supposed to be back in my burrow. Like, it's getting late. I need to get back. And they just have their head down and then they just like moving, barely stopping to feed. They just pause every now and then. We saw this guy running, tongue out, looking crazy, late for his meeting with Club Bed. Hello and welcome to the 25th episode of the Wild Dispatch podcast. I'm Robin and I'm back with more skills and stories from the wild. Now today, for me at least, is a moment to celebrate. Time seems to have flown by the past, half of a year. I mean, this thing's been in the works for much longer than that, but I guess actually being on air, so to speak, I don't know what the correct term is, but being on air for the past 6 or so months has been epic. Yeah, I mean, I've had so many amazing conversations and so many incredible experiences as well, partly due to the connections that I've made with fantastic people all over the world. That's in the US, in California, Northern California, South Africa, and also in the UK too. I want to say a big thank you to all the guests who've been really willing to jump in and take a chance and answer my questions and tell their stories and share their skills and all that good stuff. So thank you very much. It's been amazing. Also, I want to say thank you to the, like a dozen or so guests who have been kind enough to come on the show and we've recorded and are still waiting patiently, hopefully patiently, to make it onto air. I'm just editing and putting everything out week by week. I'd love to do it more often, but I think it makes sense to do this as a weekly thing. Now, I've also thanked the guests. I want to thank everyone who's listening, everyone who's been along for the journey. And to all the new listeners today, welcome to the party. Thanks for coming along. It's been absolutely amazing to see this thing pick up momentum. I'm excited to say I've also started guesting on some other people's podcasts, which is fantastic. It's really fun to just chat and share some stories. Examples, Dylan Love, just did an episode with him. He was actually a guest on this podcast, episode 13. He has his own show, the PH Journal, and that is a fantastic podcast. He's gained a lot of momentum and he's got a lot of experience. He's been really helping me. So Dylan, thank you for that. And Lee Hauk, episode 15. Lee is a fantastic character. He's from Alberta in Canada. And he now has a new baby, at least in the digital space. The Let Off podcast is just about to launch, and I believe that I've just recorded an episode with him yesterday, and that's going to be coming live soon, so definitely check that out. So, after all of this thanking and nostalgia for just a 25-week duration of existence, I guess we'll get to the point of what this episode's going to be all about. We're actually going to do something a little bit different than usual today. It's going to be a cozy chat with myself out in the field. Actually, I recorded this just a few days ago. It was in between chasing turkeys on some public land nearby. And I had my gear with me, my recording gear. I had all my hunting, my archery gear as well. But in my backpack, I also had some headphones and a recording device. And I thought, I'm just going to take a chance and see what happens. I actually got some good advice from a friend a little while ago who said, like, dude, you've got like a bunch of good stories. Why don't you just have a play with making some content yourself? Because you spend all your time talking to a bunch of other really interesting people. Maybe you should share some of your own nuggets of stories and things like that you've gathered along the way. So it's time for me to stop waffling. Well, I guess actually carry on waffling, but in a slightly different environment. On with the show. Okay, so early start this morning. Perhaps not as early as it should have been. Still tired from working so hard, but found some birds, had a little play, couldn't get them to come in. I mean, it was I think from what I could see, I couldn't see them all. It was quite thick. I could see a few jakes. And yeah, so they definitely were interested, but not really going to divert from their course. I figured out where I think they're going. I think I've just about mapped their loop that they like to do, but I think I'm going to go and do a big loop now, maybe a mile and a half, and try and be in the area where they want to be headed. So yeah, let's see how it goes, fingers crossed. I'm also noticing as I walk along this gravel road to get to the trail, there's a lot of poison oak around. I think this year is going to be particularly bad. I unfortunately have quite a sensitivity to it by now, given the cumulative nature of, I think it's called urushiol oil. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but in my silly English naivety, I didn't really know what the issue was with that stuff. You don't get it in England. And I gave myself some mega doses. So I have to watch out for it all the time now. So it's going to make for some extra acrobatics while hunting turkeys this year. Okay, got to the top of a hill and I just put out a few calls, got a gobble bag, and I've just seen it heading in my direction through the thick woods, so I need to set up quick. Man, this was a very intense experience. I managed to close the distance, got high ground, calling, moved up, moved up a little bit, and then they just came flying in fast. I didn't quite have time to arrange things, but yeah, I was full drawn 20 yards. But I just didn't have a clearing in the brush to make a good shot. I think it would have been risky. But anyway, I think they're coming back. I tried calling again. I need to get back to it now. I can hear some butting, so I need to shut the fuck up. So, as I so the issue was I was full drawn, and I had a big fallen, I'm not sure what tree this is, maybe redwood, I'm not sure, but anyway, was laying down in front of me. It was kind of ruining my visual in front of me, but yeah, it wasn't too bad, but it was an obstacle that I had to get past, so I decided to just gently climb over it. And just as I did that, I saw the turkeys kind of on a hillside, on a bit of a, what would you call it, a little dome section. What do you call it? I can't even remember the word for it now. Not enough sleep. But they were in position, 2 or 3 of them gobbling off of that hill. So I'm going to make a mark of where that is, but I was just pinned, couldn't move. I had a tree that's thinner than my body in front of me, so that was just breaking my outline. But yeah, they didn't really like what was going on, so they stood there. I've never seen them stand in one place for so long. It was 15-20 minutes, so I was just biding my time, trying to stay still. But eventually they just cleared off now. So still good adventure. That was close. That was about as close as you can get, full drawn, just waiting for them to step into just didn't quite have the confidence that my arrow was going to go through unscathed. So the weirdest thing was, and I couldn't work it out for a while, why those gobblers were just sat in one place, looking really static. And I thought, well, for one, I didn't think that they were spooked by me, because their heads were behind. One was looking the other way and the other one's head was behind a tree. So I was just confused by this behavior because I'd never seen it before. But if I walked back around that area once they'd left, and I found actually then I spooked out a couple of hens, and I think that's actually hen nesting area. There's like 2 or 3 birds that were nesting on that hilltop. So that's interesting. I don't know the best plan of action, but I feel like getting up super early and going there another day, gobblers might kind of swerve over there and be in that area. So that would be prime. At least that's what I think. Joe Costarella, maybe you're shaking your head and thinking, no, that's definitely the wrong thing to do, but I'll give that a try. Maybe I should give you a phone call and find out. Anyway, inner monologue stream ending now.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.
Since then, I've been walking around the hills for a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours, and haven't heard a whistle, a peep from any other sides of the basin. So I'm in a nice quiet little area here and thought I'd take a break and record some stuff. Also, I'm going to try something else a bit different too. Something I've noticed, first of all, I've said it many times before, and I do mean this. I'm having a fantastic time with this podcast. And I'm very grateful to everyone who's listening and who's given me so much positive feedback. But I am finding the constant weekly turnaround is definitely realistically an added pressure, which I guess part of my fear was getting into this thing. I mean, we always have fears, but I think my fear was that this was going to take away a lot of my time, and I wouldn't be able to get out in the woods as much. And that has been happening. I haven't minded so much. Like, deer season last year in California was pretty low intensity in terms of hunt days, but I did manage to get out and shoot a buck straight away, so that was nice. It took the pressure off, and to be honest, I was more excited about doing the podcast and trying to get some momentum with that, so no regrets there whatsoever. And then South Africa was amazing. Part of the whole reason of working so hard beforehand, before going to South Africa, for people who don't perhaps know, I haven't maybe mentioned it so much. I'm sure there'll be some episodes talking around this stuff a bit more soon. But I was lucky enough to spend quite a bit of time in South Africa because my wife is from there. And yeah, got a bunch of hunting in. I managed to stack up a bunch of episodes beforehand, so I didn't have that same time pressure. It was amazing. I learned so much, had so many adventures. Literally hundreds of stalks on animals. The learning curve is next to none. I can't really, I've got a huge smile on my face. Just yesterday I was writing like a mini article, a little piece about one of the successful hunts, just one of few of the hundreds of stalks that actually worked out successful. And I really couldn't help but have a huge smile on my face as I was writing down that story. So yeah, it involves a large kudu bull, which I was lucky enough to connect with. So yeah, for everyone listening who doesn't come from South Africa, a kudu bull is similar in elk, perhaps ever so slightly, a fraction smaller than an elk. This one was about 600 pounds. Yeah, I won't tell the story now because I don't want to spoil it for later, but yeah, amazing. I think the reality of coming back from that, frankly ridiculous, not normal situation in South Africa where I have so much time to just get off in the bush and have these amazing adventures and just really intense experiences. I've noticed this beforehand, but and also I anticipated it this time around coming back, and of course, like, boo-hoo, poor me. I'm not asking for sympathy from anyone, so that's not how I'm setting up. I'm just kind of like talking through some of my experiences the last few months. So I knew coming back there would inevitably be a bit of a mental dip, just because, you know, you get back to reality, no more hunting season, and yeah, back to the grindstone. It's that kind of reality check moment. I'm sure a lot of people who are listening have experienced that too, so nothing special. But yeah, I guess if you were going to give it a name, I've been struggling with some depression for, I mean, struggling. I guess that's the reality, isn't it? I've been feeling pretty depressed for the last few weeks. I do think I'm coming through the worst of it now, so that's good. I'm managing to feel like I can allow myself a bit more of a balance in terms of work and play. I think perhaps some of this slump has come about from just working myself really, really hard. And the only way I can do that is by being so motivated and so into something, and that's what this podcast project is. Yeah, it's excuse me, it's just like amazing and utterly consuming, and I absolutely love it. But I mean, there's a but. There's always a but, I guess. But that comes at a price. That comes at an exhaustion level. So yeah, now coming back, I've been back a few weeks, and I think for whatever reason, my mental health and the workload that I've put on myself, I guess I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself, has meant that I've not really managed to get out chasing turkeys in this season yet very much. It's coming up to, I guess, 3.5 weeks of the season in California, and this is the second day that I've managed to get out. Well, second morning, I should say. I only managed to get out one morning before. And normally I would be out like many days and just making it work, shuffling around, getting in the mornings, evenings, that kind of thing. But it's just, I think when you're pouring your energy into something, there's never going to be an endless stream from the fountain of motivation. So yeah, that's just kind of the reality at the moment, and that's fine. It's fine. It's just how things go. I mean, it definitely put a fire in my belly this morning, getting 20 yards from those turkeys, and just so close to getting those birds, or getting one of those birds. But yeah, I mean, if anything, that's reminded me of how fun it is out here, and how good it is to be out here. How being inside is not where I want to be. You know, that's always the danger, right? Talking about being outside is not what I want to be doing. I should be outside, which is why I'm trying this new thing in the field. Yeah, it's just a chance to talk about what's been going on, my experiences, maybe some stories, and reflect on things, and really go from there. I think that, so I think part of this thing that I'm trying out right now is something I'm thinking about for the future, which is doing occasional episodes which are a little bit less of a heavy lift in terms of preparation and editing and all that stuff, because all those things add up, and then that really kind of is the time suck. That's the reality. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to record some of these episodes every now and then. I'm going to open things out to other people. I don't know exactly how yet, but I'll think of how to do that and go from there. Ooh, I can hear a creature. No, it's just a bit of wind blowing a twig down. So, rather than just ranting on about my feelings, I was just thinking about something else that would be interesting for people to listen to for a minute while I'm here in the woods, waiting for the turkeys to suddenly realize that they're horny. I think talking a little bit about some of my adventures in South Africa would be a good thing. I managed to hunt in a lot of different places with a lot of different people, had some really great conversations with folks as well. I'd say one thing that was interesting to me, I had a conversation not so long ago with Dylan from the PH Journals, and we talked about trophy hunting. And because I'm relatively new to hunting, I have just about 5 years under my belt, probably 4.5 with a bow. I don't know. I can't do the sums right now. But I think I'm at that stage where pursuing animals is exciting enough when they're, any animal. If it's say I'm looking for deer, I'm not too, or a buck. It doesn't have to be a huge buck. Just the intensity of the experience of chasing any buck is pretty exciting for me, and I'm sure that will change over time. But I guess that's been my point of view. I guess what I have been realizing is the intensity of experience you have when you do see a giant animal. And an example of which is one that I was trying to chase in South Africa. Now, I've managed to shoot a few warthogs. I've been pretty lucky over the last few years hunting in the Eastern Cape where there are quite a few of them. And warthogs, first of all, are amazing creatures. I mean, Pumbaa is the OG. And the cartoon is not doing that much of an exaggeration on how entertaining these animals are. They're just like these barrel-bodied, incredibly short-legged creatures. And I've been told by other people, actually, I think it was Dr. D, who was in one of my previous episodes, that actually warthogs, they seem dumb, but they've got incredible senses, and they have incredible reactions. I've seen them jump the string like crazy. It's remarkable. Their smell is really good, but the thing that lets them down is the fact that they're so short. Their little short legs mean that they're so close to the ground that they just can't see quite as well as the other antelope that are much taller than them. I think even some of the smallest 25, 30 pound antelope with their necks, the way they're shaped, actually do see better, further. They're higher up, they have a higher perspective, a better viewpoint than warthogs. So why am I talking about warthogs? Well, they're first of all, amazing fun to hunt because they have so much character, and because they're low to the ground, they don't see quite as well. You get a couple more chances. I would say they're still very hard to hunt. I'd say compared to wild boar in the US, I'd say that they're quite a lot more difficult, especially, for the reasons I've explained. But I was lucky enough to go hunting with Fred Hammer while I was over in South Africa, and he took me to this area. I won't say where because I don't want to blow up my spot. But I spent time in this big basin, and there were a few warthogs around, but there was one which I happened to see the first time that I went there. And the thing was massive. I mean, proper slumped back, giant, wiry black mohawk like they have. But the tusks on this thing were huge, enormous. Biggest tusks I've ever seen in real life. And when you see a pig like that, I think that might be the moment that I became a trophy hunter. Because just such a magnificent beast, so much character. I don't know, it's hard to explain exactly what the thoughts were, but it seemed like such a mission, such a worthy mission to try and catch this pig, which I later named, I spent time thinking about this, and it was a work in progress. I think Sir Snort-a-Lot was where I ended up. And so Sir Snort-a-Lot, I crossed paths with him the first time with Fred, and I don't know exactly when that was. It was early on in my trip. And we saw that pig, and the thing that was distinct about it is that at that time of year it had a sow with it. Sorry, I'm just waving mosquitoes away from my face. I don't know if you can hear them. It had a sow, like a female with it, which didn't have any babies, and that's quite unusual. At least that's what I'm told. I'm saying this like I know. That's what Fred said. Unusual to see a giant pig, a giant boar, massive tusks, with a female and no babies. So we saw this thing, these two pigs trotting along, and they made their way into a little brushy area. And Fred and I well, first of all, I saw the look in Fred's eyes, and you don't see that too often. Giant, goggly eyes. He was very excited, which equals me being even more excited. And yeah, we made our way through to that area, and we actually got pretty close. We were about 22, 23 yards away, but they were bedded into in thick brush, and the brush there is spiky, it's nasty, it's dense. There just wasn't a shot through, but I could see that giant pig, and he was laid down, kind of quartering away. I think at this point, actually, it was about 30 yards away, maybe 35 yards away. But the thing was, we wanted to try and get over there to get an angle, get like a shooting window to see if that was a possibility. But at that point, it was probably 10 or 11 in the morning, I'd say, and the sun had come out, and it was pretty hot at that point, which is why they'd already just bedded down. It started getting hot. But there was no shade. And the thing that I've been learning a lot whilst hunting over in South Africa is, and I know everybody talks about this, and of course, yes, it's an obvious thing, but the importance of shade, I think everywhere, but in South Africa, is so important. You just got to stay shadow to shadow to shadow. That's your directional sense. Like if you're going somewhere and there's a map from bush to bush to bush to bush to shadow, just stay in as much shadow as possible. And the difficult thing was, it was pretty sunny, and we didn't want to cross this big open gravel road. It wasn't that big, I say. In South Africa, it's big, but it was only maybe 4 yards across. So actually, what ended up happening, which was a bit of luck, we were there for about 10 minutes waiting. And then just a cloud just moved across, small cloud, and that gave a window to just make that move. I'm glad that we were patient, and that was the thing Fred taught me. It's just, okay, we can't move right now. They're gonna see us, the two of them. Too many eyes, too many good eyes. They're gonna see us. So we managed to just creep across, crawl through the open area in that brief moment that the cloud was over the sun. So that got us in close. And I really thought that was going to give us a window, but at that moment, it just wasn't clear enough. I mean, I shoot solid broadheads, but it was just too thick. I mean, too much of a chance with a pig like that. You don't want to make a shot that's not good. I mean, okay, you don't want to make a shot that's not good on any pig, but particularly when you've suddenly decided this is the most important warhog of your life ever. Then you want to make sure that you're able to make a good shot on the thing. So, after a bit of waiting and sort of negotiating shooting lanes, trying to figure that out, it didn't really work. And in a heartbreaking moment, I don't think that they necessarily heard us or knew anything was wrong, but the male got up. He decided he was thirsty, and he trotted off through the brush. Actually, let me think about this. I think it was maybe the female that got up first. Anyway, she got up and trotted through the brush, and thankfully Fred was there. He was like, that's the cue, the male's going to follow. So we kind of crawled back, thinking about where it was going to go, and Fred happened to know, because he knew that area, that there's actually like a trough, an old cement, farm trough that has some water in usually. So he figured, right, that's where the warthogs are going. So we backtracked and actually moved relatively quickly. Which is also another thing I've been learning with Fred, is that if you have the right moment and the eyes are looking the right direction and you have shade, then you can actually get away with more than you'd think. But you've got to move in the right way. So then we were on a mission to intercept this bus, this absolute shipping container of a warthog, as it was heading towards the fence line, going to duck under the fence and go to the trough. So we got that. We did that. We looped back round, and we probably moved back about 25 yards to the right spot. And at that moment then, the male got up, bam, moved through and got to the trough. And Fred kind of was there, and I kind of moved back around him. I was ready to take the shot. And it was a perfect moment. It was like that giant warthog was there. And because warthogs are so short, it was like perching up almost like, I don't know, I think it actually had its forearms maybe on the edge of the trough, like reaching in and then drinking from it. But at that moment, I was ready to go. And I think there was a bit of a miscommunication. And it's funny because this actually ended up being like a moment where I was like, aha! It wasn't me for once. But at that moment, there was a slight miscommunication between me and Fred. And I was in the process of drawing back. And then Fred was suddenly trying to stop me and say, no, you're going to shoot the fence. You're going to shoot the fence. The trouble is, I'm 6'4". Fred's a few inches shorter than me. And I think from his perspective, there was a chain link fence, not a huge one, maybe like 4 foot high. But that chain link fence, it looked like from where he was standing that I was going to hit the chain link fence. Later, he said that he regretted that because ultimately you take a shot on the chain link fence anyway, there's a reasonable chance it's going to go through. Or it's going to hit it and completely fly off in the wrong direction and be a complete miss. So that's a learning thing for all of us, I guess. But that brief moment of Fred being like, no, I actually have a video of this, I'll put it up. That brief moment of Fred kind of pausing, saying, no, you're going to hit the fence. And me saying, no, I'm fine, bro. I'm a giant. I can see that my arrow is going to fly straight over this thing, like with the trajectory of the arrow. But in that moment, then I think that giant bus of a warthog, who is huge for a reason, he's seen a few things and he knows, he gets his sixth sense. Anyway, he figured something was going on. And so he started to trot off across an opening towards another dry riverbed and only gave me a shot at about 74 yards, which, I mean, I'm still learning. I'm probably not going to take a shot at 74 yards. And I don't regret not taking that shot. So Snortalot lived to save another day. Or no, was safe for another day. I don't know. Lived to see another day. That's what I'm trying to think of. And so that was that, really. We spent a fair amount of time going through that dry riverbed and trying to figure out if they'd bedded in that area, and we didn't see them again. So called it quits after that day, and yeah, it was a good day. It was exciting. I mean, always exciting to see a giant animal, just a magnificent beast. It's not always just about getting the thing on the ground. I wasn't heartbroken. I was just excited. And yeah, I'd learned a lot as well. We'd made some really good stalks. I'd learned a lot about light, which came in handy a lot later with that kudu. So I could say that's the end of the story with that warthog, but it's not. It was actually the day after. No, it was actually that day. I think that was the last day of the first hunt that I did over in the Eastern Cape with Fred. And the day seemed like it was over. And we were having a braai, like we were having a barbecue, which is a sort of traditional Afrikaans, or even it's not just Afrikaans, it's South African thing. It's like a big part of South African culture. Outdoor cooking is a huge thing there, happens often every week, particularly in the summer, but even in the winter they have indoor braais and everything, so it's a big deal. And once a braai starts and once the drinks start, it's that's the main focus for the rest of the evening usually. So we were setting up the braai, the fire was going, the meat was on, and everything was good to go. We were going to eat shortly, and it must have been about 6 p.m, 6:30 p.m, I don't know, around that time, maybe slightly before. In my mind, we are done. We are in our flip-flops and shorts and t-shirts and having a good time, talking about the days beforehand, the adventures that we'd had. And at that moment, Fred stoked the coals one more time, and he looked at me with a serious look in his eye and said, "No, we're not going to finish today like this. We're not going to get skunked by Sir Snortalot or any other pigs for that matter. We can't finish like that." At which point I'm still holding like a pretty fresh beverage and a surprised expression on my face. And so that was it. Like, the meat was ready. We ate quickly. I think Fred basically said, right, we're going to leave in 12 minutes or 10 minutes or something. I think he said 10 minutes and I managed to get my shit together in 12. And suddenly we are driving quickly in his classic Ford. No, wait, it's a Toyota. It's just like this amazing old school 1980s Toyota. Bouncing along these country roads and heading back to this area where we'd just been to try and find Sir Tuskalot. Or Sir Snortalot, or whatever his name is right now. And so we get there and the wind is pumping and there's just this like excitement in the energy of the, like this. There's something about when the wind is blowing strong, it creates a vibe which is kind of interesting. As we get to this area, it's like a large rivered, like lots of rivers coming down through drainages. So there's kind of this big flat area, but there's these big steep hills or mountains to the sides, quite epic, rocky terrain. And I remember as we were driving along and pulling up, there were all these kudu. They were cows, so not our target, but these huge, like 15 kudu, I think I counted, 17 kudu, all along the side of the hill. They were just dotting the side, these big, majestic animals all along the side. It was amazing. Things were out and they were coming down as the heat of the day was dropping and the wind was cooling the land down. They were coming down. So there was just this excited energy. We didn't have much light left, so we knew we had to hurry, which suits Fred just fine because he likes to hunt fast sometimes. And I've followed in his trail many times before where he's just moving so quick it blows my mind. I don't even know how he's not spooking things or getting busted, but it's just bizarre. I don't know how he does it, but I just follow and try and learn as much as I can. So this time was no different. We're going to focus on those cows because they had a high vantage point and they weren't going to see us, and we're not trying to chase those anyway. We were just looking for pigs. So we turn off to actually a different drainage because the wind, that was it. The wind prevented us from going to the same area where Sir Tuskalot or Sir Lancelot is. I don't know. Sir Snort a lot. Oh. But we had to turn up a different valley, which is just it's slightly different drainage of the same basin. And suddenly we are like locked and loaded. I'm chasing Fred, almost running. Pretty much running. We get into a dry riverbed and the thing, I don't know, it's probably 4 or 5 yards high. These windy crevasses, I'd say probably 3 or 4 yards across as well, the space. We're moving quick and the wind's pumping, and every now and then Fred's like moving fast, pausing, looking over the edge of the bank, pausing, running, and we're like running and jumping over huge areas where the water runoff has just caused these big cracks in the earth. So just jumping over like 1.5 yard wide gaps that happen to also be like a 4 or 5 yard drop. That's an exaggeration. Call it like a 10-foot drop. And I've got a bow and I've got my backpack and I'm just hanging on for dear life, just trying to stay up with him, just trying to keep up with him. But as we move, we see like a couple of animals. Like we come around a corner a bit fast, and it's just the nature of when you don't have much time and you're moving quick. There's a diker. I get a moment, I'm about to draw back. The diker sees us, spooks, runs. For people who don't know, a diker is like a very small, 25 to 40, maybe 35 pound animal. A small little antelope. Very hard to stalk, very, very aware. So spook a couple of those little guys and they go running off. not disheartened. We keep going. We've probably got 10, 15 minutes of light left at this point. Fred comes up up the bank on the left side as we're going. So he's looking kind of towards southwest. His eyes light up. His hand goes out. Bam! Stop! And we just make our move up, and we see a pig just trotting, and it's got this crazy look in its eyes, like it is running and its head is bobbing, and it's just this funny thing that warthogs do. And later I found out that it happens. Fred explained this happens on windy days, that warthogs they'll be out and the light starts fading, and they suddenly realize, oh shit, I'm supposed to be back in my burrow, like it's getting late, I need to get back. And they just have their head down and they barely move, and they just like moving, barely stopping to feed. They just pause every now and then, every like 40 feet, like they might pause to eat for just a few seconds, and then they're gone again. We saw this guy running, tongue out, looking crazy, late for his meeting with Club Bed. And so he just comes in. Fred gives me the note. It like says, here, pig coming in. Here's it, like, and it was just kind of one of those amazing moments where we'd been hunting together for a long time. It's been a couple of years, many days hunting together, and things just really clicked. I understood what needed to happen. I moved up. I couldn't see the pig at that point, and I waited. And I was patient, and I stayed completely still until I saw the pig. As the pig came in, moving from my right to the left, there was a tree in front of me. I don't know, probably 50-inch diameter tree. That's probably too much. Maybe 30-inch diameter. 40. Let's do an average 40-inch diameter tree. And as the pig went behind that, I drew back quickly. Bam, drew back, got on one knee, set in position, and the pig just keeps trotting past. No idea that I'm there. Bam, 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 bam. Running. Fred gives the thing a whistle, and then another whistle, and then another whistle, and then I think it was like the fifth whistle, really whistling as hard as he could, that the pig actually stopped and looked for a second. I didn't have time to range. I thought that it was about 30 yards, but I felt good in the shot, and I drew back. I pulled through the shot. Bam! The arrow flies. The position is perfect for like a quartering away, but it's high and actually spines the pig. So the pig goes down. I try and get another shot in, mess it up, miss, because I'm still thinking it's 30 yards. At this point, Fred's shaking his head, telling me it's 20 yards, bro. I get another shot in very quickly, and it goes perfectly through the. It was like through the neck at the bottom and out the top of the head. So, yeah, done. Minimized suffering as much as possible, and got the job done quickly. And that was that. In just probably 15 minutes of hunt, or 20 minutes of what was left of light. Running up a riverbed, we managed to get a pig down, a warthog down, and finish the day with a success. So that was amazing. I mean, and the funny thing was, we actually marked that pig, dragged it over to where the road was that we knew that we would be able to drive to, and Fred's already shouting, right, come, let's go. We were back in the riverbed charging up the river. We didn't actually find any more animals at that point, I don't think. At least no opportunities worked out, but that was it was an amazing moment. It was just high intensity, very different from what my conventional perception of hunting is. And just a lot of fun, you know. And we were back ready for the last parts of the barbecue back home with a pig in the back of the truck. So a good day. A fantastic day, and an amazing last day, and into a very successful hunt of the first of 2 hunts that I did in the Eastern Cape with Fred Hammer. So I think that was my 5th animal in maybe 10 days. So amazing. I mean, the most success I've ever had in a hunt ever. So the work was paying off, and I was learning a lot. So in this theme of pigs, there's a lot of story and a lot of build up. I went back to the same area and hunted with Fred once again. And I had some amazing successes the second time as well. I was trying to focus more on antelope, just because I felt like, at least in my mind, antelope are just that bit harder to hunt. And yeah, I'd shot pigs and I'd shot fallow deer, and I'd been evaded by many of the antelope species the previous time, and so I was really figured I needed to get some of those under my belt to really feel more confident about hunting in the bush in South Africa. So yeah, I mean, I actually did have success very quickly, which was amazing. And I was very grateful for that. I shot a kudu and a duiker in 48 hours of hunting, which two animals that are pretty difficult. I mean, kudu are incredibly difficult to hunt, so I don't know if I'll ever manage to achieve that again, a nice bull, but I definitely, it was an amazing moment. But what that did is it also then freed up a bit of time the later half of the hunt to let my mind wander back to that giant big tusker pig that I had seen beforehand. And actually, I had some footage of it because Fred was there with a camera, so I even had like the visual of this pig to go back to every now and then and remind me of how much of a banana tusking god he is. And I had actually, in my travels beforehand, shown another guy who I hope, Pete, I hope, if you're hearing this, Pete, I hope to get you on the podcast soon because you are fantastic guest potential, that's for sure. There's a man who's very experienced, who happens to run a large piece of land, a game farm or a game property. And he really understands the genetics and what it takes to breed amazing animals. And so I take his advice seriously when he gives his experience level, or gives his perspective on how big an animal is. And I showed him the warthog, Sir Snort-a-Lot. Oh, I'll never get bored of saying that. And I showed him a little video of the thing as it was trotting away at 70 yards. And he was instantly like, this is a very nice pig. He said, I think his exact words were, this is a 1 in 3 million pig. And yes, there are a lot of warthogs out there, but that seems like a big number to me. So, to circle back, as I'm very close to the area where I know this pig happens to be, and I've managed to get a couple of antelope on the ground, I figured I would regret my choices if I didn't go and try and find this giant pig again. So, I actually spent a couple of days back there. And yeah, it was good. I think it was maybe one day, actually. It was a one focused day, and we went back to the scene of the crime, so to speak. Knew the area where this particular giant boar and his pigletless sow were. And just moving through that area, it probably took a few hours, but it wasn't long before I saw Sir Snort-a-Lot coming, trotting across the same dry, clear area that I had seen when he was running away the time before. So we were in that dry riverbed. And he was there with his sow, feeding, zigzagging, just in the open area, but heading towards the river, which was very exciting. I mean, obviously, you can imagine how excited I was. My mind was blown that we'd actually managed to find this pig again. So I crawled up and moved my way up as close as I dared to go up the riverbed. It was not very high riverbed, but it was enough of a bank in order to cover my movements. And also because with those riverbeds, they're quite sandy, which is quite nice for moving. It means that there isn't much debris or anything which makes a lot of noise. So you can move up quite well. And from what I could tell, I did my best to judge where the pigs were going to come through. And And the thing was, I wasn't wrong. I crept up and got into position, and as I was there, I had a really nice bit of shade behind me. I had like a bush breaking up my background. The female comes trotting through and crosses the dry riverbed right in front of me. And I mean, I couldn't believe it. My heart rate was pumping at that point. And I already decided, I saw it coming, and I didn't even draw back because this wasn't my focus this time. So I guess that's a moment where you go like, you're not shooting the pig that's right in front of you. The sow trots by, stops, gives me a perfect broadside shot. Perfect. Looks like right at me, but I don't move. It knows something's going on, but it's not bothered. And it was, I think, 18 yards away. Perfect broadside, maybe slightly quartering away, like a tiny bit quartering, like ideal. And at that point, as it then like trots, it doesn't run away, it just trots through and goes back up the bank on the other side and up another little drainage, up another little small gully. I mean, my heart rate was pumping at that point. I was so excited. I couldn't believe that this was actually happening. And I just waited, and I was ready, patiently waiting. I think I did a few deep breathing exercises to calm myself down. and he just didn't come. And I don't know what happened. And then later, as I looked over my shoulder for a moment, probably after about 10 minutes, thinking like, what is going on? Fred was there behind me, and he was shaking his head like he'd seen something that I hadn't. And basically what happened was, as Sir Tuscalot was about to go the last stretch, probably the last 20 yards down into the dry riverbed, following a sow as you would expect, he smelled something. The wind swirled slightly, or I don't know what it was, but he smelled something. And I think the best I can imagine that what it was is to make the last move up. Ooh, something just snorted at me. Or, I don't know what that was. Interesting. But anyway, I digress. In the field, ladies and gentlemen. I think I just heard a blacktail snort. But anyway, the theory is, what we suppose is that just a tiny swirl of wind happened just at the wrong moment, and Sir Tuscalot caught the smell from my shoes that I'd taken off to close the last 10, 15 yards, just to make sure that I was being really quiet. And I think that my stanky shoes maybe gave me away, which I guess that's the point that they talk about Remy Warren. Taking your shoes off comes with some extra risks, I guess. I mean, I'm all about super quiet stalking in your socks, but I think that might have been what caused the issue. I certainly didn't look, or I didn't poke my head over, so it had to have been a scent moment. And yeah, he just ran straight up the dry riverbed, or like, on the bank on the side, and he ran all the way up there, and he was never to be seen again. So yeah, that was a high intensity moment that could have very easily worked out. I was so sure that it was going to happen, but it didn't. And then I really focused for the rest of the day on trying to find that guy. Because I knew that the sow had gone, I'm not exactly sure what the orientation was, but basically the sow had gone one way, and then the big boar, Sir Tuscalot, had gone the other way. So I figured that he would come later to try and connect with them. So I did circle around, and I got to high ground, and I just watched the whole area in the shade, just trying to see if I could see the animals and make a move. And it was actually maybe 3 or 4 hours later that I did see the wife of Tuscalot. And it was interesting. she was trotting all the way up the valley, all the way up from where, like pretty much where I'd come from, but all the way, I guess, all the way down the valley, I should say, all the way down a clearing next to where the dry riverbed was, in the kind of area where she had been, and then all the way further past, way past where I came from. And she was running and trotting and then looking left and right, and then trotting for 40 yards and then looking left and right. And it was such like a personality moment. It was clear that the sow was looking for her mate and hadn't found him. So that was a curious moment. It was actually like a weirdly human moment, you know. I guess I don't give animals as much credit as I should. I mean, I give them a lot of credit, but yeah, there was like a real sense of personality and just like the sow was just trying to find her partner, which made me question the whole idea of chasing it in the first place, I guess. But yeah, I didn't see the giant boar, and she ran off further down the riverbed, and I guess he stayed further up the river, not to be seen for the rest of the day. But I do know the area where he is now, where they are, and actually I recently got word from Fred, from someone else, actually I think the farm owner, that there is an even bigger pig with full giant curls up on one of the other drainages in the same farm. So that fills me with much excitement too. So that was really a story which I've had close to my chest. I haven't really told anyone about that, and to be honest, I don't think I'm gonna tell those stories in other podcasts. It's a half story right now. We don't know what the ending's going to be, but I wanted to share it, and it was something that popped in my mind when I'm out here sat in the woods on a nice hilltop here, just waiting for some turkeys to come by. So yeah, I'm glad that I managed to tell that one. And then also there's many, many more, and maybe I'll tell more stories in the future, but it's always been an interesting format thing where I don't always feel super comfortable just talking endlessly or chewing people's ears off. So this was a bit of an experiment, and actually it was fine. I didn't feel too bad. It felt fine. I just imagine you're all here with me. Cheese on toast. But yeah, it's true. I think once you get into the mode of it, then it's fine. It's good. It's nice to relive the memories. And I think that's the thing, right? I think it's nice to get these stories out and share them, and then I'll be able to enjoy them later on. So now I need to get back to the task at hand and try and find these turkeys. Actually, in this exact spot where I am now, I did have a very close call with a massive gobbler with a double beard. He ended up circling behind me and looping all around me, which was hilarious because I couldn't do anything. With the bow in my hand, the thing, yeah, there was going to be no chance of it working out. But I'm back here, and there's no action right now in this area, but maybe there will be later on. I'm going to try moving a bit further down the hill. Maybe I'll be able to drum up some interest from lusty gobblers. But I think that's all for now. Thanks for listening, everyone. And fingers crossed we can turn this into a happy turkey story at the end. If you're in California at the moment, or even in other states right now when turkey season's open, then I hope it's going well. I hope you're getting success and putting turkey in the freezer and enjoying all kinds of delicious turkey-based meals. And if it's past the season, because it may be, I don't know exactly when I'm going to put this out, then I hope that you could look back on it and have some stories to share yourselves. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. And until next time.